Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Holy Human Podcast. Here, we explore the full spectrum human experience through nuanced conversation devoted to those who live to bridge worlds. This is a space where the mind and the body, the masculine and the feminine, the holy and the human come together. My name is Felix Whitman. I'm your host, and I invite you to today's episode. Today I'm joined by Maximilian Bartel, a dear friend of mine. We met at the end of 2023 and started connecting on a deeper level earlier this year. I visited him in southern Bavaria at the Chiemsee near Munich, and now, a few months later, he's here to visit me for a few days. And of course, we had to sit down and record an episode for the Holy Human Podcast. For the first time on here, live, in person. Really exciting. So, a few words. Who is Maxi? He's a seeker, a musician, a podcaster, has been an online marketer. He's a son, a twin, a friend, and a guide. One of Maxi's passions in his life is creating safe and sacred containers for people to express themselves from the heart. There's many of those spaces, from his podcast, Going Out, Looking In, to his work with men, to writing and sharing his music and art. Well, he's a dear friend of mine. I'm really excited for this episode. I could say so much about him and about the conversation we had. But without sharing too much, let's dive right into the episode, shall we? Friendship, men's work, and spirituality. Enjoy, my friend. Welcome, Maxi. Welcome to the Holy Human Podcast.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me here.
It's an honor. My first live podcast experience. You're helping me to set up this environment. It's beautiful. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Maxi. Like, who are you? What do you do for living? Maybe start there.
Right. Yeah. First of all, like I said, thank you so much for having me on. It's always like an interesting experience to sit on this side of the conversation and to receive questions instead of asking them. And I'm learning a lot about myself sitting on this side. And it just like illuminates different areas within me that I don't get to see otherwise. So thank you for this opportunity. And also thank you for the very, very generous hospitality that I got to receive throughout the last couple of hours and days since I arrived at your place. It's really, really touching to see the care that not only you, but like your whole family is bringing and showing towards me. It's really, really beautiful, like on all levels, like emotionally, physically, spiritually. Physically, I'm just like being taken care of. It's such a loving environment here. Like the space is just lovely. And I just, from the moment I arrived, I felt very welcome and nourished. And, we talked about this. My whole nervous system is getting in a really like regulated state. I sleep very well. I rest. I get to eat very like good food and in sufficient amounts, which has a little bit been like an issue for me the last 2 weeks. So I'm super grateful for all of that. Let me just also say that. And yeah, who is Maxi? I guess in a worldly sense, yeah, I traveled around the sun the 30th time this year. I'm I was born in Stuttgart in Germany, raised in a small little town just outside of Stuttgart, and yeah, just from a very early age, since I can basically remember, had a feeling of something being a little bit different potentially to the people around me. Back then couldn't obviously put it into words, and then later on I started to find language to it. We spoke about this as well yesterday when it came to school, that for me school was a very let's use the word interesting place. Also very challenging place, just confronting me with a lot of my own insecurities, but also incapabilities of expressing myself and being confronted with a system that I, with everything that I bring as a human, couldn't really find a compatibility with. And so that came with some struggles and led to a lot of like shame and guilt that was stored within me. And that led me basically to a really like deep path of self-discovery and like a strong internal motivation and intrinsic motivation to seek answers and to inquire like this question of what is this feeling of being different? Like where's this coming from? Can I put a name to it? Are there other people who maybe, resonate with it? Am I the only one? And then as I was emerging out of the school system and out of the environment that I was put in, basically without being asked, right? You're just in a room with people and in an environment where you grow up with a family system and a whole like social infrastructure that you didn't choose. So you were put there, and there's a little bit, wiggle room left and right, but also like logistically, without a driver's license and stuff, you cannot really like expand too much. So for me, coming out of school was like, really breaking off the chains and really then like traveling straight. Basically the first thing I did, like straight away travel, and then really investigating this inner quest of finding out who I am, basically. And then fast forward, that is all like around 15 years passed since then. And I sit here today with a sort of like paradoxical understanding of myself. Like at some state, like in some sense, I feel like I've gained some clarity and I got some answers to questions that I had, and I can put more words and there's like an embodied sense of like this feeling that I have and had. But at the same time, I don't know anything. So, and also when it comes to the work that I'm doing and like how I want to be like carrying myself, like humility is one of the most important aspects. And so like this understanding of like, I know that I know nothing, really. So I guess that's for a start where I would land.
A little bit of your history. Thank you for sharing. Let's dive into something you basically, spoke about the entire time, which is spirituality, like the overarching topic of spirituality. Like, what does spirituality mean to you personally? There's so many definitions and so many terms, but what does it mean for you and based on your experience?
Yeah, it's beautiful to get asked these questions.
Yeah, you can dig like inside of your soul.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's about the essence, isn't it? It's about remembering and it's about like it's the essence is in the middle of everything I do, because it's the infrastructure of my existence is evolving around spirit, in my understanding, in my experience. And so everything that comes after that is basically just the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
So, because spirit is at the core. So God, whatever name you want to give it, I give it the name God, source, creation, the universe, is at the center of me, in my understanding of all of us. And so basically, when you look at that onion of life, and you got the spirituality, which I also feel like is in the work that I'm offering and everything that we as humans do. We strive to, sometimes more consciously than other times, but this whole playground is the gymnasium for the soul, right? This worldly experience, we're training, we're working out, collecting experiences. The soul collects experiences.
Right.
And so that's why I feel like it's always funny when people say, either about themselves, like, I would consider myself a spiritual person, or about other people, like, this guy's really spiritual, or this woman I met, wow, we connected so well because she's very spiritual. And I always feel like it's funny, because this sounds like that there's a choice to make. Like, there's people who decide to be spiritual, and then there's people who decide not to be spiritual. But to me, there is no choice in being spiritual or not, because that's the fabric of the universe. Mm-hmm. So there is no choice. There's an level of consciousness around me being connected to my spirituality, to each and everyone's spirituality. People can find words and articulate, but that doesn't change the fabric, the infrastructure of the universe, right? The core of the onion that I was talking about. And so that's why I always find it funny around these topics around spirituality, and I feel like that's in a nutshell what I can share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, like, every person on this planet is spiritual per se, like, in the essence. And then there's people who are more conscious of that experience of like leaning into spiritual practices or spirituality, but it's not so much like a mental construct that many people think, like, oh, these people are more spiritual than these people, right?
Right.
It's so important to understand that. I find.
And that's the thing, like, we are already like now in the step of associating spirituality with doing.
Mm-hmm.
Doing certain things, speaking in a certain way or whatever. Like I say again, the essence, like, it all depends on also when we have these conversations with some teachers that also come to mind, and the different areas that we can work with us humans, like within our human makeup, and we can address certain modalities and psychology, or then somatic work with the body, more focused on on which level we're working on. But at the deepest level, that there is just in my understanding, there is just one seed, one core, one sapling, that we all spring from. And so it doesn't have to do something with what we do really. And I feel like this is something that we can embrace, because it also has a lot to do with self-love, right? Which is such a big topic nowadays, because we feel like we're not enough. I am not enough. Like, and then when I say we, and I want to be careful of my language here, everything I'm going to say in this conversation, I speak about my experience, right? And the things that I gleaned throughout my journey, because I want to speak from that place. I don't want to speak about a topic, you know? This is also what I try with my podcast. I don't want to hear about yoga, meditation, stuff. We can read all this. It's all available everywhere now with the internet anyway. But what's your experience? You uniquely, like, what did you experience? Like, what's your connection with that? And so with me, because I got so lost and so far away from the core of the onion, from spirit, right? That there was so much necessary to do outside, because the connection was lost to the core. And then you think, I thought that I need to do certain practices, to say certain things, to cultivate a spiritual life. And nowadays it's just about the most mundane things, right? And those are Zen teachings and all that. Like, you know, chop wood and carry water, really.
I love that. Yeah, grounded spirituality, practical spirituality in the everyday life.
Exactly.
That's what I'm really passionate about as well.
I know.
How can we find that spiritual core you speak of, this essence of ourselves, but also in other people, in those, not those fancy practices or those fancy retreats. Not saying they are bad. They're certainly part of our reality, but how can we find that spirituality in our mundane lives, in the everyday life, in, like, you know, carry water, chop wood? How can we, like, what would be some, I mean, this sounds a bit contradictory, but how can we find it in practical ways? Like, what would you, if someone would ask you, like, what would you recommend him or her to, like, do to cultivate let's say, a more intimate relationship with that inner spark, that essence?
Well, again, my experience.
Right.
I just, you know, I speak about this also on my channels and stuff. For me, it's stillness. Just like, become a little bit still, you know, silent. Just like, listen. Because that's the thing. Obviously, it doesn't, it's not really graspable, like, with our senses, right? That's why there's so much confusion around it. So many people run around looking for spirit and God, and have, again, myself, had a hard time doing this, because yes, it is not right in front of our eyes sometimes, you know. It's more, you know, as I like to say also, you know, God doesn't speak sometimes, but he will sometimes clear his throat. And so, can you hear this whisper? Can you hear the subtle cues of the divine? And me personally, I had to shut up for a second, not just for a second, for a prolonged period of time, to hear the throat clearing of the divine, of God, of creation, which is the antidote to the world we live in, right? Which is very noisy, very busy, a lot going on, a lot of stimulation. So, and then also with, you know, bringing in a little bit of the masculine and the feminine, I also found that there's like different strokes for different folks, you know. I can just share from my experience. For me, Zen meditation, living in a monastery, was exactly the right thing, because my mind is so busy, and because I needed a complete antidote to return to the core of the onion. Now, I spoke to some people, and one of my teachers that I truly and highly respect, and she's working solely with women, she's like, you know, the feminine spirit might work, that's her experience, might work a little bit differently.
Right.
So, for example, this complete stillness might not resonate as much with the feminine as maybe some guided stuff does, or some maybe some just a little bit more of a like with also in the sonic environment, that there's like a little bit more happening for the feminine movement to be guided graciously to the core, whereas with me, with the masculine, I needed that stop to get out of my, get out of this machinery up there, and to then really being able to notice the subtleties of life, really. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I really like the aspect of, or the element of, everyone has sort of a unique path that they need to cultivate, like find and cultivate. And it's not like a one time you found it and then that's it. It's like a process of really cultivating, like taking care of a garden, right? Every season you have to do different things. And depending on what you're seeding and planting, you have to take different care of those plants or whatever you want to grow in your garden. And so everyone, like even male and female, have like different paths, right?
Exactly.
And so I really want to highlight how important this is, because the human mind is so often wanting that one size fits all approach. It's like, tell me what works for you, right?
Exactly.
And let me do that for, I don't know, half a year, and then I find that piece that you found. And right, that's not how it works. So
no, it's not. And something else I wanted to say. Let's see if it comes to me. It slipped through my mind now. Might remember it later.
Might come back.
Yeah. I got it.
You got it. Nice.
Yeah. You asked me about practical ways to connect with spirit, right? For me, it's like an internal move. And it's funny because it's an integral part of my work with men, shifting from the view basically downwards and only focused on myself, which in my personal journey, especially when it comes to spirituality, played a huge role. Because I thought like, okay, I need to focus on myself in order to find my spirituality and my connection to God and all of that. And now doing more and more of this work and just being a little bit further down the path, I'm like, has a lot to do with the inner posture of like going from this like to this and widening my view to the people, places, and circumstances around me. And through that like extended view, I find numerous and basically infinite possibilities to serve. And through service, I feel like it's one of the most direct paths to the divine. And to God, when it's not about me, my needs, my thing, my journey. This like sort of like rigid ego-driven sort of situation. In my personal journey, was not beneficial for my connection with God. Just the contrary, actually. As soon as I was internally moving a little bit more to the outside, things like purpose started to arise more.
Interesting.
And karma yoga, right? So I have like you always say, I have quite a 3D job, and I love it, and I really enjoy. I don't see it as work. I see it as service. I see it as karma yoga. I see it as something I do, literally serving people. Literally, that's what I do.
Right. Tell us a little bit about that job. Just an overview for people. So.
I work in a restaurant. And I started as a waiter, and now I get to do this. I do waiting tables, which I love. It's literally one of my favorite things. Like, imagine just like you nourish people. Like it's literally a job. Like you're fulfilling a basic need of a human being, which is to eat. And you are responsible. It's like a magician, right? They come in with a desire, with a wish to, fulfill a need. They tell you what they want and you make it happen for them. Isn't that incredible? Like they literally will say, I want an apple juice. And then you bring the apple juice and you satisfy that need. Isn't that one of the most, like, to me, satisfactory energy exchanges? Because it's immediate. It just happens like right in front of your eyes. And you can see if it tastes good, if they like it. You see the effect. You see it instantly. And it's funny because like when they come in and they're hungry, we all know that. When you're hungry and then you eat, how that changes the mood of a person within 5 minutes. And so this is all very direct. And the gratitude that people show or don't show, both sides, is very direct. So in that sense, this energy exchange of me serving someone and creating not only just like, I'm not just a plate taxi, but I'm creating an experience for someone,
right?
For people, for a family, for a couple on a romantic date, whatever the scenario may be. And I'm using my energy to create a container for them to be in the whole room. That's how I approach it, at least, right? I mean, and that's why it doesn't matter what you do. It's how you do it. And so waiting tables can be very spiritual. So that's why I so much enjoy that. And now it comes with a lot more responsibility. Now I'm actually also managing people and I'm taking on a lot more responsibilities within the restaurant, which I super much enjoy, because before that I'm coming from a whole different background, business and consulting and all of that kind of stuff. And it was so much about like theories, and doing PowerPoints and intellectualizing how to lead people. Now I'm in the middle of it. Now I actually got to do it with practical like needs of people. They're like right there. Like they have a need now. They have a complaint now. And I have to find a solution right then and there, right? Can we have a table? We booked the table. Where's the reservation? It's not there. Well, then you got to do something, Whereas before it was all about like, so imagine you being in a scenario and then the middle management wants something, but you have to communicate to upper management and all of that. And it was so like up in the head. And now I'm just like on the battleground, really. And it's accelerated growth for me. I love it. I really, truly love it. I don't feel like it's work for me. And I'm learning so much about myself as well, because I get triggered all the time. All the time I get triggered. It's wonderful. And I get to, tune into people's energies on a daily basis of all walks of life, all ages, all genders, all everything. And so, that's, I guess, what I can share about my current job. Yeah.
I love the passion that you're sharing this with. And tell us about what this foundation, I see this as the financial foundation for your life, what this allowed you to create from that. Like it's almost like the soil for your life. And on top of that, because you have that, let's call it a 3D job in the spiritual communities, right? We all have, there's so many like negative views, and people see like 3D jobs, like being a waiter, as something they downgrade it. And I find it so inspiring the way that you talk about this, the way that it actually accelerates your life, it enhances your life. And from that place of already being whole, having that very normal job, there's so much growing that I get to witness, and I just love it. So tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you. I also have to give credit to my teacher, Michael Singer, who I've been, following for many years, and who I started to walk the spiritual path on, it was through his teachings. And he's all about this, all of the meditation, all of these things. If you leave the house and your practice ends there, it's not worth anything.
Right.
And also only if applied in the world that we live in, we can make a difference as well, right? If the encounter with the woman at a grocery store is not significant to you because you don't consider it spiritual, then in my opinion, you just missed the point entirely. And so I was, I guess, subconsciously always looking for ways to implement spirituality in my life. And I guess one of the first impulsive reactions was to get a job then that really aligns with my spirituality.
Exactly.
Which is, understandable. So there was a phase in my life, especially after I left the corporate world more or less on my own terms. Not really. I was also, I was being made redundant, and then I just lost my job basically from one day to another, and then a whole bunch of other things happened in my life, and then I was like, okay, so I take this opportunity to really dive deep into potentially some wisdom that I gleaned over the years and how I can share that and make that a profession, make that a career, and then make money out of that and earn a living. And that didn't work at all. That didn't work. It might also be for different reasons, practical reasons as well, because potentially did the wrong things or whatever. But I would say also that it had a lot to do with my energy and the intention behind it. And I just, on a very practical level, I just figured that I just work differently. I know that I cannot be creative, that I cannot be fully expressing myself and really be creating anything sort of deeply meaningful, also in a spiritual sense in this life, if my whole system is in fight or flight constantly, which is caused by a financial instability, for example. I just can't do it. And I tried to work against that, and then did all the manifestation kind of things, and abundance, and it's just my mindset, and I just need to clear those blockages and work through it and stuff. And maybe I just did it all wrong, but it just didn't work, man. Just didn't work. So and I was feeling miserable. I was feeling miserable. I got in some sort of I wouldn't say it was a full-on depression. It was definitely a prolonged period of low frequencies, which didn't lead to anything, obviously, when you're operating out of this state. So no business opportunities. And everything that I was sharing was coming from a place of lack, because I was lacking, literally lacking money in that case. And then that downward spiral just continued to go down. And then I just, through men's work and through teachers that then were entering my life, I started questioning this notion of everything in my life needs to be spiritual by the book, and by the common definition, and started to twist it around. And, in German we say we dress up the horse from the back, so I reverse engineered basically, and just said, so let me just say, if I put the foundation really strong and I'm rooted and I'm grounded and I'm doing that with the intention of serving and really pouring my spirituality into that, let's see what then springs from that. And honestly, it was the best decision I could have ever made. Yeah, because now it's so funny, man. Because I wanted it so badly before, didn't work out. Then I shifted my intention, put a lot of time and effort into the job that I'm working on, and I'm still only working 4 days a week. There's plenty of time I still have. Plenty of time. And now endless opportunities come. Endless opportunities, because the people I actually got to serve in the restaurant, also by the restaurant that I'm working in, which, is a conscious place, by the food that we're serving and how we do it and stuff. It's not it's not a fast food restaurant.
Right.
It's a restaurant where people come with some consciousness and they want to have a certain experience, and I get to interact with them. So potentially now, guess what? Well, they're potentially clients of mine because they feel into the energy, they get to know me, which wasn't my intention. It's just what happens now. And I get to see it now play out, that my network is rapidly increasing, and my offerings, they don't even need to get sold. I don't need to promote it per se, because they're naturally curious about, like, is this like all that you're doing? Like, hey, you seem like a really like interesting guy. Is there something else you're doing? And I just like, there's no effort, there's no pushing down something people's throat, or like, it's coming from a different internal energy.
Yeah.
And that's just that just really is beneficial for this foundation that you were talking about. It really makes me feel regulated, that my nervous system is in a more regulated state. I know how to pay my bills, how to pay my rent, how to pay for my car. And from that place, I can make a really grounded decision how to move forward with my business, how to do it with my podcast. Everything actually after that is nice to have, because it's already nice. So everything else on top is like, wow, I can really be happy about it, you know? And I guess that's what I can share about that.
Thank you. It's so inspiring to me as a friend.
Thank you. Yeah.
I find this is already building up. So now we've been talking about your foundation. Let's talk about what's growing on top of that foundation, which a lot of it is men's work, right? You're offering men's work. I've been taking part in one of your men's work groups as well, which has been so far like incredible work. And like, yeah, just tell us about what you do.
Yeah, thank you for that. I also have to, or want to give credit to you. Like, you were one of the first people to initially join my first men's circle online, and I told you that also, like, that your energy so like helped me and also helped the whole group, because you were so open already, and that really like tore down the walls for other men as well. And I don't know, it just built up momentum also for me. So I also just wanted to thank you for that, showing up and also gifting me with the trust back then. We didn't know each other that well back then, and you gifted me with trust, and you were like, yeah, I let you facilitate this space for us, and I'm open for it. And you dived in courageously, and like I said, I really, it did a lot for me. So thank you. Yeah, men's work. Yeah, whatever name you want to give it. I'm just in the most organic way started offering what I needed the most myself. And you know how the infrastructure and the mechanic behind my offerings was back then. It didn't really change too much. Money should not be the reason why people can join a lot of my offerings. Certain ones, yes. I cannot, do infinite one-on-one sessions for people and, give them all my space and time for free. However, that's not the primary intention behind this. It's really medicine I got to receive, the initiation I got to receive through masculine alchemy, working alongside with men, with the organization called Sacred Sons. You know about them, and I guess many of your listeners do. Incredible work that they're offering, and it was just what I needed the most as someone who was entirely lost within the landscape of masculinity. I had zero connection with it apart from being disconnected from it and saying that everything that is per se masculine is bad. That was my understanding of masculinity just a couple of years ago. And so, however, I knew subconsciously, some part of me knew that there was something to look at. And once I embarked on this journey, I learned so much. It improved my relationships, and I mean all of them, professionally, in with my work, with my bosses, how I, get to stand up for myself, setting boundaries, communicate clearly, the romantic relationships that I'm entering, the women, how I treat women, how I get to discover my own body, my sexuality, how I'm able to communicate my needs, my parents, my father, the relationship with my father changed in a profound way, relationship to my mother and my twin sister changed in a profound way, and the relationships with my friends. And so that happened, and then it's also part of my natural DNA. You can read this in my I can read this in my profiles, let it be Gene Keys, let it be human design, let it be astrology, whatever. There is a notion to my being in this incarnation that I am sort of really driven by expansion, followed by contraction. But there is a big expansive element. I'm feeling good when being in motion and when doing things.
Right.
And also leading away. And so having received this medicine and seeing the effects of it, it was the next step for me to, and that was always the case with the music I did in my life or the acting or whatever kind of creative expression. At one stage, it switched from doing it only for myself to then also offering it to other people. And so I did with men's work. And now I'm offering circles online and offline. So I'm holding monthly, circles online, which group that you are part of, but then also in person in the area that I live in Bavaria and Germany. And it's wonderful work. I'm currently enrolled in the leadership training with Sacred Sons. I'm training with them, participating with events with them. I'm facilitating alongside the leaders there, which is an incredible privilege. And I'm learning a lot there to hopefully in the future do really like more work within Sacred Sons, because I really stand behind what they're standing for. And I'm offering one-on-ones as well. So I'm working with men in one-on-one containers, and I approach this with the deepest amount of humility. Like I said in the beginning, I know that I know nothing. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a healer, and I ask questions, and the answers come from within the man I'm speaking to. And I'm really clear on the boundaries of these containers, and also I guess it's sort of like valuable for the conversation we're having when I'm speaking about this. I'm very open about the communication around my values. So those are presence, truth, and love that are building the foundation of my work. And all of my teachers that inspire me. Michael Singer, I already talked about him. Paramahansa, Yogananda. So that's just the basic understanding of where I see, us as a soul, and the understanding of us being human. That there is like I said at the beginning, the core of the onion, and then everything comes on top, which obviously affects the work I'm doing with men. David Deida's work, The Way of the Superior Men, affects my work. Robert Moore's work around the archetypes affects my work greatly. So I owe this also to the teachers that I'm got to receive a lot of teachings from. And also, for example, some of the amazing facilitators of Sacred Sons, Vince Chafin, personal mentor of mine, who I greatly appreciate and got to learn from. So yeah, all of that is part of my work.
I love the transparency, just sharing about your mentors, where you learned your skills and who helped you in which ways. That's so important.
Yes, absolutely.
And something I'm curious about is, like, why would someone do men's work?
Right.
That's a very interesting question to me.
Well, what has become of men? What has become of men?
Yeah.
I guess it's the only question you gotta ask. And then you look around. So There's a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
No clarity around masculinity. And again, that's only my experience. So lost. No idea what it means to be a man. 2024. No orientation, no role models. Which leads to chaos. Simply put. If the masculine energy is not contained, if it's not channeled in a safe and purposeful way, it finds its ways. For sure it does. Look around. Happens everywhere. And so the need for masculine initiation, for guidance, for role models, for all of this is, for me, reason enough to speak about it, to do anything that I can to change this narrative, because masculinity is needed more than ever before.
Yeah.
More than ever before.
Yes.
We need clarity around what it needs to be and what it means to be a man. And to me, this is crystal clear. And that is in respect to all people who, who have different views and opinions. It's not about that. And we need to be clear. Because by not being clear, everything gets very airy-fairy and we lose clarity. Also, if we want to disagree. We can only disagree if we are clear about what we're disagreeing, So if there's no general understanding and also for me as a man, not speaking my truth, what that means, then, you can disagree with me all day long. You can. But I want to make sure that I position myself clearly enough so you know what I'm about. And then you can decide if you want to come for the ride or not. And so what people can expect, that was your question, right? What they can expect by working with me is like a safe space where, in my opinion and in my experience, masculinity can be experienced for each man themselves.
Yes.
I don't offer a framework of what masculinity is.
Yes.
I offer a room for men to experience it themselves. Now, my experience tells me and has repeatedly shown that it ends up at a sort of similar place. Let's just put it that way. When it comes to values, for example, I told you about this earlier. When leaving a men's retreat, in my personal experience, I got a very clear sense how to treat women, how to treat elders, how to treat children, how to behave in society, what my purpose is. All of these things emerge naturally from the masculine.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to tell me these things. Also not in these men retreats. And so within the work that I'm offering an experience for men. Right? And then they go through this experience, through prompts that I give them, through exercises we do together, through invitations that I give them in a safe space. And then they experience it, and they come up with their own interpretations of what it means to be a man. And there's all sorts. There's there's even genders. There's transgender men at Sacred Sons events. So it doesn't have to do anything with all of this gender situation. And at the same time, it's crystal clear that we're doing work with the masculine, for example. And these prompts and these exercises are designed to trigger the masculine within you so you can look at that and you can judge for yourself, right? That's what it's about. It's about sovereignty, clarity. That's what it's about, right? And within my very, very personal work, the feminine plays a huge role. Like, we're doing a lot of movement, So for me, men's work is divided in 3 pillars, personally. So there's a physical pillar, which takes up a huge kind of space because I want to get the man I want to travel with them from here to here, right? This road.
Yeah.
And to do this, I found it very helpful to use the body, because myself, I was able to, and I'm still am, able to articulate my problems and all of the things that are going wrong with myself and with the world. I can intellectualize them very well, and I can talk about them up here very well.
We all can.
Yeah, maybe, potentially. I don't know. But it stays there. It stays on this sort of like, on this level. And so I found it so alchemical and so helpful to have men guide me to the more like into a deeper place within me, and then go into the second pillar, which is the relational work, emotional work, really, and then potentially psychological work, where you really then with prompts and questions go deep into a topic that's, relevant for a man. But you do that once the man is anchored in the heart space and into a more like deeper place, and you don't hear concepts and learned kind of things. So first pillar, the body. Second pillar is the relational work. And then the third pillar for me is the spiritual aspect. The aspect of like giving it to something higher. You're only not doing it again with the view, you're looking up, you're looking around. This is about much more than just myself. And I invite the divine into it. I invite the ancestor into the space. I invite so much more than the eye can meet into the container. Plays a huge role. We're doing the ceremonies, we're doing the rituals. All of that triggers archaic parts of the masculine. And it helped me tremendously in grieving processes and all of these kind of things, that I don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it alone.
Thing.
AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, 12-step program, they work with this since centuries, decades. They work with proven methods of giving your suffering and your addictions up to something higher. It's an integral part of the 12-step program, which has helped millions and millions of addicted people. You give it to something higher. And so for me, this is an integral part of the work, these three pillars. And they work in harmony. And my containers are basically made up of those three components. Yeah,
I love all three of them, as a somatic coach. And
yeah, this will resonate with you.
It's like the first one, the body, creating safety, connecting like from the mind to the body into the heart. That's basically my first step as well, as a somatic coach. It's all about creating safety, a safe container, orienting in the room, showing the nervous system that it's safe.
Yeah.
And then the relational part, that's so important as well, because like my mentor Verena König always says, like trauma most of the time happens relationally, like in relationships. So it also can only be healed in relationship. And so first and foremost, we need to grow capacity so that we can socialize those, that we can be in relationship. Once that's laid out, then we can dive into those relational patterns, look at those, and then giving it to a higher power. I do that as well, every time, even before this podcast, I spoke a prayer, just giving it to a higher power and just seeing that we are not alone. And something else I want to add is like in the polyvagal theory as well, socializing and interacting, having like human interactions, it's not a nice to have. It's like an imperative. Like if we want to progress as a society, especially with all of this, like the rise of technology, we need to learn how to be with each other again. That's so important. And then your work, like the men's work, comes in so importantly, because there's a distinct, it's like something different when two men come together, right? When a man and a woman come together, and when a woman and a woman come together. And so the alchemy of men coming together, there's something very special.
Yes.
Back in the day, right? Men have always had brotherhood, like their young boys have been separated from their mother, and like they had a ritual, some kind of initiation where a man learned how to, like a boy learned how to become or be a man, and that's missing. And we need that if we don't want to like ruin this human experience in the next few decades.
Yeah, very beautifully shared. I agree with everything you just said, and I definitely want to underline that. And bring that up once more is there is like a unique medicine to be found for men in spaces with men.
Mm-hmm.
There is medicine to be found for men in spaces with women.
Yes.
It's just different.
Different.
There's no superior one, and it's necessary to have both. If you just have the one part is just going to be missing. That's just my experience.
Same, yeah.
There's a subconscious part of the masculine that you tap into if you want or not. If there's a woman in the room, and even if it's 20 men and one woman is in the room,
Mm-hmm.
if she doesn't even have to participate in the whatever you're doing. One archaic part of yourself will go into protector-provider mode, if you want it or not. Very subconsciously, but it will change the energy of the container. Of anything you will do. You don't even have to do men's work in that space. It could just be a public place. But I just noticed that at the gym yesterday. Yeah. Predominantly male space. Predominantly. Free weight area. Only men. One woman entering. Dude, man.
Boom.
Energy of the whole room changes.
Yep.
Posture changes.
Yep.
Everything changes. In that case, also was a woman who, really sort of like, I would say, from just the outer appearance, triggers much for many men. And you could see it. Like I could see the the wandering eye and the sort of like, a little bit heavier sets, and you could see it in the body language and stuff. And there is no judgment here, but it's a truth.
Yeah.
We need to be clear about that, and then we need to be aware of that. And there's nothing to be, judged here or like, shame anyone. It just shows where our work lies and how we can use a male-only space to address certain topics.
Mm-hmm.
Which is beautiful. It's beautiful. So let's do it, Let's have women have the sisterhood. Let's men have the brotherhoods, and then have mixed containers to really do the work then together, And this is exactly what Sacred Sons are doing. Men's only retreats, and now with Convergence 9, they brought the men and the women together. So it's happening.
It's happening.
Exactly.
I love the passion in the room. It's palpable. I love to.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad, so happy about this opportunity that you knowing all about this like live podcast and then setting up the space here, and that we get to talk here. We already did one at your place, which was amazing. One of my first podcasts.
Right.
And so now, a couple months later, our friendship has deepened a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just such an honor having you here speaking about the topics that we love both, and especially what you're bringing into the world. It's so, so important. We need more people like you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. I cherish our connection so much, and it shows me so much also now, having spent 1.5 days with you really like closely and in person again, and all the conversations we had, but then also the conversations we didn't have because we were busy just being with each other and doing things. So non-verbally communicating, and sharing experiences, how valuable that is. Just two men doing, and also, taking the edge off a little bit, and, going on adventures and bike rides and what else we did, That's what it's about, just the two boys innocently playing with each other and finding that, connecting to that like unconditional happiness and love, and shake off the heaviness and the seriousness of all of the world and all of that, because that's going to be going on anyway, and we will return, this podcast will end, this time between you and I will end. You will sit there at your desk again, and you will, hammer on the fucking Canva templates and, write your Instagram stories, and I will do the same, and we'll be in the hustle and bustle. But let's be present for the times where, where we can engage in genuine connections like this. It's so valuable.
Yes.
So thank you.
So valuable.
Yeah, thank you.
An imperative. Yeah, let's dive into that conversation about friendship as our last big topic, and then close it. But yeah, deep friendship, cultivating deep friendship, that's a huge topic nowadays.
Yes.
Especially, again, with the rise of technology and pandemic and everything that's happening in the world. It's becoming ever so difficult to connect, human to human. Like I myself noticed this, like the last couple of years, something I never had is 2 years ago, it was the first time I experienced social anxiety. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like I'm connecting with humans and I'm experiencing fear. And like, where's this coming from? Because we're so disconnected. Because we doom scroll every day. We're on Instagram, and this is training our nervous system, our brain, of a false reality. And so, again, the importance of just cultivating something like this, where we can touch each other, where we can give each other like fist bumps and like, hug each other and do things like go on a bike ride. And it's just so important. Yeah, not really a question here, just, opening the space for you to share anything that's on your heart.
Well, I told you about it already. Like with friendship, I feel like it has a lot to do with one's capability of trust, trusting yourself as well, and openness and vulnerability. Because ultimately, and this is very mundane teaching. Mike Posner said that once, the musician. He said, your music as an artist can only be as deep as you are as a person. And I believe this statement to be true for all areas of life. Your friendships can only be as deep as you are as a person. So the quality of my relationships and the friendships changed significantly with the degree of my personal evolution, my ability to hold space for myself. And that allowed me to trust people with things because I was secure with them within myself, or I knew that once I will share something and I can trust someone enough, I'm opening up a portal of vulnerability, of openness, of depth that the other one can step into as well. Now there will obviously, and this changed over time, because at the very beginning of cultivating deeper friendships, I would say in my journey now, reflecting upon it, I would say there was a lot of like adjustments to be made, where old friendships were still sticking around, and I entered these spaces with more and more depth, vulnerability, all of that, which wasn't able to be met from the other party. And so those relationships then dissolved slowly and new ones were emerging based on the frequency that I am emanating now. So the beauty about friendships, I feel like, is that they're the most accurate mirror of your own growth. For that matter, all relationships you're engaging in, especially romantic ones as well. I mean, you think you figured it out. Just look at the people you're attracting.
Exactly.
And then you see like, oh, right, there's my work. Okay, thank you. So, and I'm speaking of personal experiences, there's so much to be learned from that. And like you said with Verena König, there's so much healing to be found in relationships because a lot of damage was caused in relationships, right? And in friendships. And that's why I feel like both are important, doing the work on yourself, by yourself, for yourself, and then keep seeking connections. And also when it comes to friendships, well, also, I guess one thing that I want to say is what I said earlier when we talked about men's work and being clear, speaking your truth. Do that. Speak your fucking truth, again and again and again and again. Be clear about what you want, what you don't want, what you stand for, and what you don't stand for, so that you can attract people, friends, cultivate friendships based on that. If I don't do that, and it's a reminder to myself, when I'm thinking about the content I share, if I hold back with certain things, I will attract people who also hold back, potentially, in that area or with that piece of content that I want to share. So can I be even more courageous there? Because do I really want people to follow me based on 90% truth? You know? Because they will resonate with the 90% truth that I put out, for sure. Or they don't. But that's basically what I'm focusing on now, is just like to really, you know, like Meher Baba said, you know, life is like sandpaper. You know, it just takes off the edge again and again. It's just like you take it off again and again, and you rub it, you rub the edges off, and you make it a little bit more smooth. You know, day after day after day after day, and you get closer to the essence and your truth. So this is a, you know, ever evolving process, but it's definitely worth exploring, because now us sitting here is a testament to that. Because
absolutely,
why did you resonate with me? Why do I resonate with you? Because we both put ourselves out there in, you know, our, at any given point in time, best capabilities and authenticity, and based on that we both resonated. And then when we started, you know, speaking and meeting in person, that was only deepening and until now. So yeah.
When you were saying speaking your truth, sharing your truth, like 100%, there's a very tangible example that I would like to just briefly dive into. Like,
for sure.
When we started connecting a day ago, you came to me, and first thing, we went on a hike, not really a hike, like just a short walk, an hour or so. And you were sharing like, okay, this is what I bring to the table, like this, you know, there's certain things you should know. And then I shared what I'm experiencing, right? And then through that open and vulnerable conversation, we could meet on a similar level, instead of, you know, so often it's like we unconsciously, you know, we are experiencing some hardships, some emotional turbulence, and then we connect with a friend that we really like, and we try to suppress that because we want to have like a nice experience. But if we suppress it and not really at least show what's on the table, then that oftentimes leads to these like weird experiences that we are having. So that was something that I feel inspiring, you know, in friendship, just coming to the table and saying like, hey, Felix, okay, so you should know X, Y, Z. That's what I'm experiencing. And I just wanted to share that. So cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, thank you for sharing that. You know, even doing that opens the heart, deepens the connection.
Absolutely. And, you know, through friendships, like, again, back to the piece where, you know, you don't have to do it alone, especially addressing men.
Yeah, especially addressing men.
Dude,
women talk,
like,
right?
It's just
they're
like,
more
it's so sad. It's tragic. You know, male suicide 4 times as high as female suicide. Depression rates, you know, I could go on and on about this. We have a loneliness pandemic among men.
Yes.
We have a pandemic of men being absolutely, completely and utterly disconnected from their purpose and from, you know, social interactions. So the masculine energy within them doesn't cultivate them itself. Actually, it finds its way into porn, into addiction, into drugs, alcohol, violence, everything that we see play out in our day, in our world today. So through connection, especially among men and friendships, that isolation that wall of isolation gets a little crack. And the more cracks there are, the more light can shine through, and the more trust men also gain, I feel like, in life and love again. And that's just my very personal journey as well. To also like go for one step further, because so many men have never experienced unconditional love from a woman. That's also one integral part. And I consider myself utterly and incredibly lucky to have experienced this with now only being 30 years old, I got to receive this from a woman. And I'm not speaking about my mum, which is a different kind of love. But I always say it will change a man's life profoundly and utterly from the moment forward than when they start receiving, or at any point where they received unconditional love from a woman. It's really recultivating trust in life. It makes you see the world through a different lens, because the feminine, and this, this is the richness of this conversation as well. It's not just one thing, it's both. It's so many things at the same time, and they can coexist. So the feminine has, I know that for the men listening, I know it can utterly destroy us as well. Nothing can hurt as much as the feminine sting, and there's nothing who touches the male heart as much and as deep as the feminine does. But at the same time, through that pain can also come the light, as Rumi says, as we know. And there's so much beauty to be found in that. And women want us to be open. Mm-hmm. They want us to be, seeking that connection. And so I know this is just life. You got to take risks, honestly. Like if you just sit at home and never take any risks, like go for it, really, and if there's someone you like, then just tell them and be open about how you feel, and learn if it hurts, because you will. And yeah, like I said, this life is the gymnasium for the soul. We're here to evolve, we're here to grow. That's why the soul comes down. So yeah, going a little bit meta here, but
anything else, Maxi, that you would like to share on this podcast?
No, I feel like I said enough.
Beautiful. Yeah, it feels really complete, especially the last part about friendship. That was beautiful.
Thank you. That's what I want to say. Thank you for this opportunity for me to speak my truth. And thank you for the wonderful things that you create in this world. You've inspired me deeply on my personal and spiritual journey. I am deeply inspired by how you cultivate a relationship to God, especially how you celebrate it. I'm deeply moved by the connection you cultivate with your family.
Thank you.
And your brother. And I am convinced that it needs more men like you in this world. And I'm so sincerely curious and keen to see where life will take you. And I'm just grateful to be, standing by your side throughout that journey. Maybe sometimes a little bit more distant and sometimes a little more close, but always there. So just thank you deeply.
Thank you, man. True friend. Thank you, dear.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, dear.
Where can people find you, Maxi?
They can find me on Instagram, Maxi Bartel. They can find me maxibartel.com. That's my website. They can find me on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube with Going Out Looking In, my podcast. And in general, I would say the name Maxi Bartel. If you Google that, you will find everything that I do, and we can take it from there.
And down in the show notes.
Down in the show notes.
Yes. Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Maxi.
Thank you.
Yes. That's it.
Nice.
Thank you for being here, for tuning in and for journeying with us. Hopefully this episode served you well. I'd greatly appreciate if you leave an honest review or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, if you're interested in working with me, I'm currently offering a 3-month one-on-one mentoring program called the Rose and Sword Mentorship. The purpose of this one-on-one container is to help you feel safe in your body by building your nervous system capacity and to alchemize your trauma into purpose. Should this speak to you, my invitation is to explore my website, felixworkman.com. There's a lot to read there. Also some free resources. Or you can schedule a free call with me via the link you find down below in the show notes. And with that, my friend Felix checking out, hopefully seeing you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day.